In a world filled with screens and distractions, we invite you to reconnect with the natural world around you. Welcome to Nature Bound, a podcast dedicated to unpacking the intrinsic bond between humans and nature. We'll uncover the benefits of spending time outdoors, including how a nature-centric lifestyle can improve your mental health, elevate your leadership skills, and unleash your creativity. And now here's your host, outdoor enthusiast, and renowned author of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock, Emanuel Rose.
Hey, everybody. I'm here with my good friend, Emanuel Rose. He's an author, he's a hunter, he's a fisherman. We haven't hunted or fished together yet, but we've been on a few podcasts and recorded a few podcasts and hung out at some conferences. It's always fun to do. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Rick. Yeah, we got to get out in the field together at some point here soon.
Yeah, exactly. Get some fishing in. Yeah, I don't hunt
Yeah.
much anymore, but I got a shotgun. I could take a shot at some birds.
All right, well, or at least go hiking with it, right?
That's right. I go walking with my fishing rod quite a bit.
Indeed, yeah,
So what we're gonna do, we were just spitballing. I forget when we were talking a few weeks ago about, all the event activities we go on and adventures we go on, and got to thinking that maybe it would be interesting to record some stuff about helping people plan for adventures. There's kind of 4 steps to getting set. One is obviously planning the perfect road trip for a fishing or hunting adventure or just camping. The second would be to maximize your experience. There's some tips on that. And then explore the scenic and underrated fishing spots. That's always a special. People like to know about the fishing spots that are underrated. We each have a few, I'll bet. We may not want to
yeah,
talk about those, but something else, of course.
yeah,
And then finally, just building memories and long term adventures. So we're going to wing it here. I have a concept in my show called Rick's Riffs, where we just get on and just riff about stuff. So we'll probably take that approach, see how it goes. There's kind of 5 topics under each of those 4 headings, and we'll see what happens.
yeah. That sounds good.
It could be interesting. It could be not interesting at all, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'm sure we both have a lot of tips. So the first one is planning the perfect road trip for a camping and fishing adventure, or any adventure really. I think there's some things that Emmanuel goes through and some things that I go through. Um, Top of the list is kind of choosing the destination. Obviously, you want to, select the ideal camping and fishing spot from local rivers to remote national parks. I'm sure you have your favorite spots and your spots close by that you don't really have to plan for. But if you're going to somewhere new, what's your process?
Yeah, I think it depends if I'm going to go by myself or I'm going with a
Mm,
group. That's the first thing, right?
yeah.
If I'm solely dependent on myself, then I tend to get pretty deep in. I'll buy a guidebook that'll cover that area, so I have an actual physical copy. A lot of times, I'll also get like the atlas for that state. So
Hmm.
I've got the road atlas, and then I use Onyx, and so
Mm.
I'll then use Onyx and Google Maps and figure out some destination around that, and uh, like for instance, I think it's called the Jawbridge out here in Nevada. I've done all that for that
Hmm.
wilderness area that I haven't been to yet. So I have all these places along with kind of the main town where I'm going to get supplies,
Oh,
as
right. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, as everything progresses,
Is it a
and
grocery store or is it, I got to buy groceries at a liquor store? What am I doing?
it'll it'll be just a grocery store of gas in that little spot. Kind of like Troy, Oregon. It's
Yeah.
you got like right there on the Grand Ron and the in Winona River. It's just a little bit of grocery store and no gas,
Oh,
unfortunately.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
So you got to plan ahead for those kind of destinations.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of canned goods. Yeah. I do
Yeah.
the same. I don't, for big trips, I haven't done too many big solo trips, but sometimes what I'll do is if I'm going somewhere to do something else, like I'm driving to a trade show or driving to and out like I drove across to the Outdoor Writers Association conference in Wyoming,
Yeah.
and so I took some time and took some look at some planning, some spots to fish. But I'm like you, I kind of get out the map. I buy a local map. I'll buy a local guidebook just so,
Yep.
in case I get there and go, okay, now what am I going to do? I have some resources to go do that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't depend 100% obviously on the digital stuff because
Yeah.
we end up in spots where there's no cell service and no internet. So you got to have a combination. Um, and I ended up in that situation this fall where, I'm driving between Oregon and Missoula and right there on the
Mm.
Clearwater and Loxa and all that. And a lot of that has got cell service. And then the spot where I needed it, there wasn't any. And so I had to break out the paper maps and the books. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. A
good to
lot of
have a
times too, you'll be driving down the road and you got cell service, but then you're probably like me. You find a dirt road to turn down and go camp at, and when you get down that dirt road, you got no service. Or you get down
exactly.
the dirt road to the campground and there's no service. So,
Yeah, exactly. So you got to have redundant systems, which is a big theme in all the things that I do around these trips is redundant systems.
yeah, but I agree 100%. You got to have two and three. Yeah, two radios, three radios, two. Yeah, two and three of everything. I agree.
Yeah.
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 Where did you learn that?
I learned from my dad, who was an outdoorsman, but also from from making the mistake enough times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I learned it from guiding. My dad, we
Oh,
all went
nice.
camping a lot, but I don't remember, or maybe I was too young to be involved in the planning process. But when I was guiding on the Kern River and other places, you always had two or three of everything because you never know when you're going to break something, lose something. Yeah,
You're guaranteed if you only have one, it's gonna disappear. It'll
that's right.
fall in a hole or it'll break instantly.
Yep, that's right. So, what are some of those gear and tools and equipment you should never leave behind for a successful trip?
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
It's a long list.
it is a long list. I think the first thing is we want to have we want to maintain, some amount of comfort, some amount of clothing, some amount of culinary, and some amount of cleanliness. And so the four C's are important. Um, the biggest thing is that you got to have a good sleeping nest, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
uh, and so in my early days, that was just a a blue tarp and a sleeping bag, and I just throw it on the ground. And
Right. Wow,
now,
luxury. You had a tarp.
yeah, exactly. Now with the advent of the 4-inch pad,
Oh man. Yeah. Or the insulated walled tent. That's the
yeah,
new thing. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the first thing is just understanding the weather patterns and temperatures. And for instance, in September when I was on in Southern Oregon steelhead fishing, I actually had lost my sleeping bag and pad. It got washed away in the river.
Oh wow.
So I borrowed a blanket and I slept outside in my tent. I was just no sleeping bag, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the temps were 60s at night, so you
Yeah,
can get
not
away
bad.
with that.
Yeah.
It's a mistake I wouldn't want to make again this time of the year because it's too cold for that.
It's pretty
Uh,
cold. Yeah. I
but
can't remember what we were doing, but I was on a trip once with a buddy. I used to have a buddy of mine who we would pack up and go and just, load the cars and meet somewhere and do our thing. And I forgot,
yeah.
I must have forgot my sleeping bag or something. And he only had one. So I was in, like in my vehicle with a like towel, nothing. And
Right.
it was cold. So yeah,
Well, the
yeah,
secret when you do end up without a sleeping bag is to put on every piece of clothing you have,
that's right. Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Like you gotta just figure, I'm gonna clothing and then wrap up and what, like you have a towel, that's awesome.
Whatever you have. Yeah.
And you could build a lean-to and have a fire also if you really needed
Hmm.
to,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you think you should never, do you have, what kind of a cook setup do you have?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it just depends on duration. I mean, I've got a really nice Camp Chef dual burner stove. I also have got single burner backpacking stoves. So it depends on on what activity and how long I'm gonna be dug in for. Um, and then there's just the basics, which is you want cord, you want knives, you want fire starting, and you need some kind of a cooler or dry goods
Hmm.
bin, and
And you got to have a crapper of some sort. What's
Yeah.
What's your a lot of these places most of the time if you're in a campground they have a pit toilet or something, but sometimes here in the Eastern Sierra we can go off grid many times, and so you want to be prepared to maintain a clean site and all that stuff. What do you use for that, or do you camp much off grid?
Yeah, that kind of luggable loo style
Mm-hmm,
where you
mm-hmm.
get a bag that's self-contained and can just go in a regular waste when you get back into the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
I like to be, if I can, I like to be far enough away I can just cat hole it and not have to worry
yeah,
about
that's
that.
what, yeah, we
Right.
do, yeah, 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 cattle. I've done the when I was guiding on the river, we had a bucket with a toilet seat and all that
Yeah.
stuff and a bag in it, which was luxury. But yeah, just dig a hole.
Yeah.
Make sure you go deep enough.
Yeah, and manage the toilet paper. That's the other thing. I think
Yeah,
you really should be burning the toilet paper personally, because most people don't take good care of that part of the process.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have a spot up here north of here called we dubbed it Campsite A years ago. Years ago, when we first started going there was nobody there. Now there's people there all the time.
Yeah.
And as I leave town going north to Reno or wherever I'm going to fly out, I always pull in there and have a coffee, or on the way back have a beer. And lately though, there's just been more and more toilet paper and trash and stuff in the fire. Just throw it right in the fire pit. Don't burn it. It's like, come on, folks, let's burn this
Yeah.
stuff.
Listen. Yeah.
Let's think about the next person coming behind us. So yeah.
Exactly.
Any other equipment that you take for camping?
Let's see. It's weather dependent. Sometimes if it's wintertime camping, I will do insulate my tent with wool blankets on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. I do have a heater, one of those buddy heaters.
I gotta get one of those. Yeah, those are handy.
Yeah. And I like the smaller propane tanks, the little baby ones that
Yeah,
are
yep.
like the 5 pound, I think is what they're
You can't
called.
find those anymore. At least down here you can't.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon, and
Oh, okay.
that's the most consistent way.
Uh-huh.
And then a distribution tree, right? So you've
Yep.
got your tank, you got the ability to do lantern, stove,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
grill. If it's someplace I'm going to be for a week or 10 days, then I'll have the full kitchen set up. So I have all the options that way.
Yeah,
Multiple
that's
knives,
handy
knife
to do
sharpener.
dishwash too when you have
Yeah,
the full
yeah.
stove setup. Yeah.
Yeah, the dish definitely for dishes, and then some kind of a washing, like you're saying, some kind. I have a little foldable sink, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also.
Do you do the three-stage washing? You kind of the first is just water to rinse all the big chunks off, then that's the soap, get all that off, and then you do another rinse and the last one is a bleach wash, a little splash of bleach on it.
If we're on a river trip,
Mm-hmm.
then manage it a little more directly. But
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of times we're not water shy. we have
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
have a lot of containers. So
yeah. A lot of times too, I'm not really if it's just for a couple of nights, I'm not really cooking, so to speak. I'm just kind of warming stuff up, or just even eating a package of. Yeah, you go to Vaughn's and buy one of those packages of fried chicken and eat on that
right,
for all
yeah,
weekend.
keep it easy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, keep it simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And how about vehicle prep? What do you do for your vehicle for long trips? Do you do anything special before you go, or?
Well, I maintain it. That's the first thing.
Yeah, yeah. Don't shouldn't have to worry about before you go. It should already be the oil's already been changed on the regular schedule. The
Yeah,
tires rotated. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's the first thing, and then I drive an Xterra, and I use every
Mm-hmm.
inch inside. So I have cords and stuff that I use to um, keep gear from sliding around
Yep.
inside, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's the really the biggest thing for the vehicle prep.
Yeah, that's a good tip because a lot of folks, just put it in bags and stuff. I have those big plastic bins with the closable lids.
Yep.
They kind of stack and yeah, cords and tie and things so I can tie things off. And then when you get to camp, it's good to tie things off or set up a tarp. You got to know
Yeah.
your knots to do that, but I think it's learnable.
I love the Husky 13-gallon with the clear lid.
Yeah.
That's where I've landed. So that way I know I can see what's in there. And like you're saying, they stack on each other, and
Yep.
able to tie it down, put the heavy stuff in the bottom one, and make that the first one on the very bottom, and then it doesn't shift around and fall over.
Yeah, I do the same. I have a Subaru Outback. That's I used to have a 4Runner, which was great, but I'm getting used to the. I think I've finally gotten used to the Subaru Outback. A little smaller, but
It is smaller,
better gas mileage, that's for sure. Yeah. Anything you do beforehand? You always, I mean, everybody, you should always check the oil, check the fluids, coolant, all that stuff, tire pressure.
Yeah, on the vehicle, yeah, I always it's on a constant maintenance program with the dealership just so
There you go.
you know minimize the chances. You can never make it. It's not perfect, but
Hmm.
minimize the chances of something going sideways, especially when like you're saying we're on dirt roads and
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere. It's not any fun to have to deal with that car
Yeah.
trouble.
No, not fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's switch to fishing licenses and permits. As anglers, we always need the right license for the right time. At least in California, the good news is you pretty much only need one unless you're going steelhead fishing somewhere, which is probably true most places. But I was in a few places in Alaska where you needed a permit for this and a permit for that and a license for this, and you got to keep up on that and do your research before you go.
Yeah, and I think that's where the planning and on a especially on a big trip, like every year I go to Saskatchewan and I get all those tags about 2 months before I leave. That
Mm-hmm.
way, they've all got time to arrive by mail and all that stuff. I think the biggest thing on that is calling the Department of Fish and Wildlife for where we're going and
Yeah,
talking to a human about it.
yeah,
And amazingly, they will walk you through all that stuff. And even while I'm on the website buying all the stuff, a lot of
yeah,
times they'll just sit there with me while I'm doing it, make sure I have everything because it
yeah. That's
gets
good advice because
complicated.
they, yeah, and then things change.
Yeah,
Places. You might look at an old report online or something, and that area you wanted to fish is now closed for
yeah,
whatever reason.
right.
So that's good advice. Yeah, I don't do that very often. That's a good one. I always try to stop in all the local agency places when I get to the area. The Forest Service, the Park Service, the
Right.
guide shop, the fly shop. They know everything. So yeah,
Yeah, if you're going someplace with a fly shop, that's the one of the easier spots. But you know, some not everything's easy online. You can't
right.
like Oregon's awesome because you can do it all on your
Hmm.
phone if you get service. But not all the states are like that yet.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. And how about road trip itinerary? What kind of things do you do to plan your flexibility and balance it between fun and recreation and all the driving?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. It's kind of dynamic planning for me.
Hmm.
Uh, I figure out where my hunt or fish days are, like how many days and when do I want to be somewhere,
Hmm.
and then um, usually I like to drive. Um, I'm kind of like a 6 to 8 hour a day driver if I can get away with it. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to plan in those stages.
Man, I'll drive for hours sometimes. I drove straight through to Wyoming to that outdoor riders conference, going and
Yeah,
coming. I know, I
yeah.
think going I spent the night, but coming back I just put the hammer down.
Yeah, and sometimes like I did a 9 hour drive from Eastern Oregon back to Reno,
Yeah,
and but it's not my preference, right? I'd rather be able to stop
same. Yeah,
and be by a creek, set up a tent, have some time to chill.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I agree. Yeah.
but you got to look at. I think Google Maps does a good job of
Mm-hmm.
being able to figure out distances and
Mm-hmm.
campgrounds. So that part that works well, I think. And then obviously Onyx again is going to help you once I find a campground, like a state
Yeah.
park or a national park, then I'll go start digging around on Onyx and see if I can find some other spots that are a little less official.
Yeah. Do you ever go looking on maps? You kind of zoom in to see if you find some dirt road going back in there. You kind of zoom in here and there just to see if, oh yeah, hey, there is a fire
There's
pit
a flat
there.
spot, yeah.
Exactly.
Creek, flat spot on a
Yeah.
dirt road in national forest. I mean, that's
That's
perfect.
it. That's it. I agree with you 100%. That's where probably 90% or more of all of my outdoor activities take place anymore. I try to avoid the parks and those things because they're just so crowded
Yeah,
and
which it's a
noisy.
good thing. It's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Like we're happy that people are using it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not the reason why I go out there. I don't go to deal with other people's noise and dogs and driving
Same.
around, right?
Hmm. I'm with you. Yep. I go to get away, quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, that's it for anything else on planning or road trip, camping, fishing. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I think the other thing is just to use your human intelligence too, and make sure you're checking with your friends and getting some feedback. Like I got some old guys that are 15 years older than me,
Yeah.
been doing this a lot longer, and they know every place between
Yeah.
here and North Dakota. So
Wow.
asking like what routes they take, and like they got to dial down at which exits to take on the
Right.
395 to stretch the dogs and things like that.
Yeah.
So leveraging those conversations also is helpful.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have been to these places, and if you go there frequently enough, generally you meet them and you become friends with them. That's how I've become friends with a number of those guys. So
Yeah,
good resources.
sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Nature Bound. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. If you found value in today's episode, please share with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to purchase your copy of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock at emanuelrose.com or on Amazon. We thank you again for joining us today, and remember to get nature bound.